Hi guys! Today we'll be recapping a story called The Monster Duchess and Contract Princess. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot. Enjoy! It's tiring to live for others, but that's how it always is for Leslie. She lives her life through pain and suffering just to appease her sister Ellie. Even now, as people are throwing her into the fire, she hears them cheer for her death as a sacrifice to her sister. As Leslie cries and pleads for her life, her family stares down at her with contempt. How dare she try to fight her own fate? An opportunity presents itself to Leslie when the servant takes pity on her. He cannot bear to push a young child into the embers of a burning structure. But hope quickly vanishes when Leslie's father takes matters into his own hands. With a strong push of his cane, Leslie's father shoves his own daughter to her death. He watches as the flames swallow her petite frame. But from within the fire, spirits offer Leslie a helping hand. "You must live," they shout through the flames. One after another, spiritual hands emerge from the thick smoke. They rest their palms on Leslie's back, readying themselves to push her out of the fire. Soon enough, they shove her out of the window, breaking the glass and plummeting her into a long fall over the cliffside. As Leslie is falling, memories of her family's maltreatment resurface in her thoughts. Her mother is always calling her out for the littlest mistakes. Her father is always defending Ellie. Ellie herself despises her. Leslie's mother continually enforces perfection and beauty upon her. It is almost as if they only see her worth when she acts perfect. A grim face of her childhood self reappears before her mind. Her mother is standing with her, but she only looks at Leslie with contempt. Tears escape Leslie's eyes as she continues to fall. There is truly nobody who loves and cherishes her. Slowly, Leslie loses consciousness. But as she drifts off, her thoughts remain only for wanting to live. No matter what pain in her past lingers, she still wants to continue living. Leslie awakes with a throbbing pain in her hands. She didn't think she would survive that fall. Sitting up now, Leslie recalls a traumatic event that transpired. How cruel can her family be that they forsake their own flesh and blood? They watch her burn and fall with no remorse for their actions. Leslie admits to herself that she's scared, but this time she won't allow herself to succumb to despair. She promises herself that this time will be different. Amidst her new resolve, Leslie shifts her attention towards her hands. When she looks down, a black cloud of magic envelops her fingers. A flashback then unfolds the history of black magic and her family. Turns out, long ago in the Empire of Regrettably, noble families possess unique powers of magic. Her family line, the Sperado family, secretly possesses the most powerful magic of controlling the darkness. However, the family is facing a decline in black magic users, ultimately leading to a decline in the Duke's line. When she walks away from her rickety old bed, a dark cloud of magic beckons her. She simply looks back at it and assures that she'll be all right. While sneaking around the home, Leslie hears voices from a room nearby. When she checks it out, to her surprise, it's her own family. What? She's still being held captive even after they tried to kill her? Listening in on their conversation, Leslie finds out that Ellie has awakened the black magic within herself as well. However, Ellie does not know how to properly use her powers. A blank and horrified expression overtakes Leslie's face as she hears what her family is plotting. To her horror, they still plan to use Leslie as a sacrifice to fully awaken Ellie's black magic. Leslie's family believes that her only purpose is to propel Ellie's own abilities. She then laments in agony, remembering that every miserable moment she had to endure was only for the sake of her sister Ellie. However, this time, she has decided to end it all. The next morning, Leslie sets off to venture somewhere outside the premises of her abusive home. Her father, Marquess Sperado, intercepts her before she could leave. But when she does not entertain his verbal demeaning, he lashes out at her. The Marquis scolds Leslie, calling her out for not wanting to help her own family, for not wanting to be a sacrifice for Ellie. Leslie responds that he should be the one to sacrifice himself if it means so much to him. Atta girl, Leslie! Way to bite back! Hearing this, her father motions to grab her, but a dark force repels his attempt. He tries to move again, but this time he finds himself being enveloped and blinded by the dark magic. Leslie pays no mind to the darkness that causes him not to abuse her again. She makes herself scarce, and when she reaches the entryway, Leslie demands that the carriage take her to the temple. After a few violent protests from the servants, Leslie asserts herself, for instance, slapping one of them, surprisingly enough for the servant to follow her orders. Leslie's officially in her can't mess with me era. In the carriage, her thoughts drift to Duchess Salvatore. The Salvatore family is well known for their unsurpassable power, thus earning them the title of monsters. Townsfolk say that the Duchess Salvatore herself possesses a strength distinctively stronger than any of the noble houses. An idea rings in her head. Leslie wonders if she'd be able to persuade the Duchess to help her. Upon arriving at the temple, Leslie finds out that the Duchess did not make an appearance today. It's common knowledge that the Duchess avoids accepting guests, so it isn't all that unusual that her presence at the temple is amiss. If Leslie wants to meet her, then her only chance is the annual Daegi meeting. The yearly Daegi meeting, happening in a mere month or two's time, is one event that the Duchess never misses. If the next sacrifice isn't in half a year, then that's plenty of time for Leslie to meet with the Duchess. Despite not meeting the Duchess, Leslie still wishes to make her visit at the temple productive, so she tries to ask for a copy of the Sperado family's records, thinking if she studies it, then perhaps she's bound to come across answers as to why they want to sacrifice her so badly. Leslie approaches the temple staff to relay her request. To her dismay, they do not easily hand out copies of family records unless their identity is verified. Leslie feels uneasy about the situation. How could she prove she belongs to the Sperado family when she looks nothing like a noble? Her dress looks like rags and her shoes aren't fancy at all. She didn't even possess a simple identity card with her family sigil. Think, Leslie. You can't give up so soon. Suddenly, an idea springs itself from her thoughts. Leslie decides to prove her Sperado affiliation by showing the carriage she came in. Upon seeing the carriage with the Sperado crest, the temple staff immediately believe Leslie. There's only one goal that Leslie wishes to achieve right now. She wants to trace back all the family records of early deaths to find other children who were sacrificed throughout the years. As she scans, she recognizes a pattern for those who became a sacrifice. All those poor children. They never got to live to adulthood. Leslie's breath hitches in her throat as she realizes how morbid these records are. None of them deserve what they were put through. Horrified and disgusted, Leslie vows to avenge all the sacrificed children. Not wanting to read any more of their deaths, she runs back to the carriage in tears. Suddenly, she loses her balance as she makes haste and she slips on the temple floor with a loud thud. To her surprise, a young adolescent man with silver hair helps her up. Leslie gazes into his eyes as he reminds her to be careful. This is probably one of the rare times Leslie had someone express genuine concern for her. Who could that man be? When Leslie arrives back home, the strangest thing befalls her as soon as she exits the carriage. Her sister Ellie came running towards her. As she reaches Leslie, Ellie envelops her in a big embrace. This was enough to perplex Leslie on the spot. So many questions plague Leslie's mind at the moment. Turns out, the Orlando Emperor's son, the prince, is currently visiting the Sperado mansion. He and a crowd of nobles watch as Ellie puts an affectionate display on in front of them. Slither like the snake you are, Ellie. It sickens Leslie to see Ellie act so fake. She scowls at Ellie visibly while still remaining in her embrace. With a violent push, Leslie shoves Ellie away, forcing her to the ground. Leslie's retaliation does not bother Ellie as she uses it to her advantage. Ellie twists Leslie's words, making Leslie sound like a cruel younger sister has no regard for her older sister's concern. This is exactly how Ellie wants it to go. Never try to outtalk a girl with a silver tongue, Leslie. Leslie mischievously grins at Ellie's fake crying stunt. She loudly questions how genuine her sister's concern truly is. Hearing Leslie talk back to her, Ellie could only harbor more contempt towards her younger sister. Trying to perpetuate her affectionate display, Ellie caresses Leslie in front of the prince and the nobles. Leslie does not recoil. Instead, she chooses to one-up Ellie by reminding her of watching idly by as Leslie burns in the flames. Hearing this, Ellie quickly tells her to shut up for fear of being heard. Suddenly, a fearful look displays itself on Ellie's face as she recognizes the dark force that surrounded Leslie. How was it possible for Leslie to possess that much dark power? Leslie finally had enough of Ellie's little spectacle. She moves to enter the mansion, but Ellie grabs her arm to stop her. In doing so, the sleeves on Leslie's clothes rip, revealing her burn marks. Seeing people stare at her burns, Leslie announces that it was Ellie who gave her those. Later that evening, a servant barges into Leslie's attic. She hastily grabs Leslie, saying that she must be punished for the lies she told that afternoon. What lies are you talking about, girl? Definitely no lies there. Leslie angers at the maid's words, and soon a dark force once again emerges from behind her, resembling the flames that once burned her. Angrily and in tears, Leslie yells that it is the whole Sperado household who hurt her. Rhea, the household nanny, holds great pride in raising Ellie to be the prim and proper lady she is now. Hearing Leslie speak ill about Ellie, she threatens to tell the marquess about Leslie's behavior. The audacity of this little girl, huh? Rhea is absolutely enraged already. Leslie pays no mind as Rhea blabbers on with her threats of punishment. She tells Rhea to do it. Tell the marquess or his wife or whoever it is. All Leslie wants is to not be bothered while she slumbered. At this point, Rhea loses her composure and dashes at Leslie with all the intention of punishing her physically. As she nears Leslie, a dark cloud of magic from under the bed wraps itself around Rhea's legs. When Rhea falls to the ground, she quietly blurts out that she was hurting. Suddenly, Ellie enters Leslie's attic in the foulest mood possible. She shouts at Rhea to get out. She does not show any concern for Rhea's hurt legs as she tells her to crawl away if she cannot muster any strength to walk. This girl is something else, really. Ellie closes the door with a loud thud. Angrily, she accuses Leslie of stealing the power that was rightfully hers. Hearing this, Leslie questions how and why all this power was rightfully Ellie's. Beauty and popularity may grace Ellie, but Leslie could see through her true colors. She openly discusses how Ellie and the Sperado family could take such great pride in their wealth and honor when it was built upon the blood of innocent children's sacrifices. Having enough of Ellie, Leslie threatens to show the marquess her own raw power. Ellie's face scrunches in frustration as she realizes that the marquess might cast her aside once he finds out that Leslie possesses great power. As Ellie exits the attic, Leslie quickly tucks herself in bed. All this drama is too much for a child, after all. The next day, Leslie indulges herself in a decent meal for the first time. She disregards the servants' odd looks at her. When her own mother comes to insult her eating habits, Leslie grins when Ellie herself tries to rid her mother from the dining room. What a life. She could get used to this, being served, being feared. Who needed love anyway? Later that day, Leslie pays a visit to the Duchess Salvatore's household. When the servant warns her of how dangerous the Duchess is, her resolve does not waver. From her estate, the Duchess Salvatore eyes Leslie's petite frame. She converses with her butler, Jenna Dorantes, about her family status. Until today, the Duchess did not know a second daughter being born into the Sperado family. Jenna verifies that Leslie is indeed a member of the Sperado household as she recognizes her from the accompanying visit with the Imperial Prince in meeting his betrothed, Lady Ellie. The Duchess continues to eye Leslie from afar, but she does not make a move to welcome her into the estate. A flashback races the Duchess's thoughts as she recalls how the Sperados have always put Ellie on a pedestal. There is little to no mention of their second daughter. A bit strange, isn't it? After a while, the Duchess finally tells Jenna to leave Leslie be. She will soon grow tired and cold, ultimately forcing her to leave the estate's premises. Hence, no need to even utter a formal decline. As Leslie waits outside the estate's gates, her hands begin to tremble from the cold. Soon after, the carriage driver urges her to go back home for fear of the Duke's wrath. Hearing this, Leslie tells the driver to go back without her. After a little convincing, the driver left Leslie alone to wait at the Duchess's estate. Despite the cold, Leslie did not abandon her post of waiting for the Duchess. She already came this far, she might as well push through with it. After a tiring working session, the Duchess finally got up from her desk to retreat. When she passes by her window, she is shocked to see that Leslie is still waiting for her. Albeit freezing and alone, Leslie's resolve softens the Duchess's expression. When Jenna calls the Duchess for dinner, the Duchess expresses her desire to welcome Leslie as a guest. Jenna complies with the Duchess's wishes and fetches Leslie from where she waits. Jenna leads Leslie to a common area and she showers her with hospitality. Leslie, unaccustomed to being treated nicely, does not know how to calm herself at being presented with kind gestures. When the Duchess enters the common area, Leslie gapes in awe at her towering figure. The Duchess sits opposite of Leslie and quickly gets down to business. Reciprocating the Duchess's direct demeanor, Leslie openly tells the Duchess her proposal of wanting to be adopted. A profound look of disbelief presents itself in the Duchess's expression at hearing Leslie's request. She's never heard of someone asking for such a thing. Usually, ladies across the land would offer their hand in marriage to her sons just to be part of the Salvatore family, but adoption? This was something new. Getting invested into this whole conversation, the Duchess asks Leslie why she would adopt her. Leslie quickly replies that by doing so, the Duchess would obtain what she has always wanted, and additionally, she would possess whatever power Leslie currently had. Mustering all her might, Leslie shows the Duchess her magical abilities to prove her point. With one stretch of Leslie's arm, a cloud of darkness overpowers the entire estate. The Duchess alarms herself at Leslie's raw power, but she is quick to catch on to her amusement. Unfazed and sitting laid back, the Duchess exclaims her awe at Leslie being a black saint. Despite her interest in Leslie, the Duchess still has much to find out about her. She asks Leslie of the intentions of her request. Being honest to her fullest extent, Leslie admits that she wants protection away from a life of abuse. Hearing this, the Duchess sympathizes with Leslie, but she is not entirely convinced. Hearing the Duchess demand more to her reasoning, Leslie finally comes clean of wanting to destroy the Sperado family. Unbothered by Leslie's confession, the Duchess continues to interrogate Leslie throughout their meeting. The Duchess is taking a liking to Leslie already, as she fits the qualifications of someone she can rely on and train. However, her wit and power isn't enough to sway the Duchess. She needs to put her to the test. A test that, for the Duchess, truly measured a person's resolve. The Duchess asks Leslie to tell her what she knows of her. To this, Leslie replies with the common sayings that her strength is unmatched and that half of her face is coated in scales. The Duchess laughs at this and proceeds to take off her mask. As the Duchess takes off her mask, she anticipates a recoiled, fearful, and horrified reaction from Leslie. However, she is soon taken aback when Leslie's reaction is that of genuine concern for her. The scar that covers half of the Duchess's face, Leslie is all too familiar with it. Their interaction is soon interrupted when the Duchess's son enters the room. A genuine look of curiosity reflects itself onto the Duchess's son. With no further ado, he asks his mother of the little girl Leslie in the room with them. Without a second thought, the Duchess answers her son by saying that she is her daughter. Hearing this, Leslie partially chokes on her food and looks at the Duchess in disbelief. The Duchess soon asks for her son to introduce himself to Leslie. Granting his mother's wishes, Duchess Salvatore briefly introduces himself to Leslie as the Lenche Night Order's commander. Even though he radiates a fearsome aura, his name still becomes babied when his mother calls him Beth. With Beth's serious introduction, the servants expect Leslie to cry at any moment. However, they are soon proven wrong when Leslie gracefully introduces herself in response to Beth. I mean, she's been through so many more terrifying experiences. The servants watch in awe as Leslie and Beth interacted to break the ice. Soon after, the Duchess mentions that later on Leslie would be introduced to her second son, Entei. That night, for the first time, Leslie feels at ease with being around people. To her, all of this feels like a dream. It feels surreal to experience genuine kindness after years of torment and abuse at the hands of her real family. A flashback to older times unfolds from memory. 1,000 years after the Empire was formed, a group called the Ete was formed. A woman knight who closely resembled the Duchess is seen picking up bodies from destroyed villages. She carries the bodies and asks her fellow knights to bury them before moving on to the next site. The memory fades and the morning sun rises in the Salvatore estate. Leslie wakes up in a good mood after spending a night at the Salvatore estate. A servant helps to prepare Leslie before she joins the Duchess for breakfast. She treats Leslie with so much kindness that Leslie's heart warms at her kind gestures. When Leslie joins the Duchess, she asks of Bethrion's whereabouts. Perhaps she found it odd that no one else is joining her and the Duchess for breakfast. The Duchess compels Leslie to continue eating, as Beth probably would not join them that morning. While at breakfast, the Duchess discusses matters relating to Leslie's adoption. She expresses that the process will be difficult as Leslie is from another noble family. Nevertheless, she should trust the Duchess and give her about a month to settle her adoption. The Duchess also makes it known to Leslie that she should keep her power hidden from everyone else. Aside from Ellie and the Duchess, nobody else must know of the power she possesses for fear that they may want to acquire it for their own gain. Despite Leslie's great faith in the Duchess, she still grims her face upon realizing the severity of her situation. Seeing Leslie react that way, the Duchess reassures her not to worry. After all, Leslie has her now, right? That in itself should make a difference. As Leslie gets inside the carriage to go home, the Duchess watches her. Momentarily, the Duchess notices Bethrion's presence. He finishes his training quite late for a morning practice. As she instructs him to get closer to Leslie since she will be his sister soon, she reminisces back to when Sai was thrilled with her first pregnancy, wishing it was a girl. Moreover, they already decided to name their baby Elizabeth and even decorated the room back then. Presently, the Duchess explains to her son that the Sperado marquess already knew that she sent people out to the orphanage before, but thanks to that, she was able to meet Leslie. The marquess is probably not aware that the daughter he abandoned is so calm and mature and has already planned out things in her little head. Bethrion then takes responsibility for taking care of things. Meanwhile, Ellie catches Leslie, who just arrived back from the Sperado marquess's house. She welcomes her with a lecture, which causes them to fight. Shortly, their mother interrupts them and immediately sides with Ellie, the favorite daughter, without knowing the whole story. Because of Leslie's attitude, her mother punishes her. She has never been treated as their child since she was born, which means that she is just an object. However, she doesn't want to be their daughter either. I mean, who would want to be a daughter of such horrible people? Ugh. Truthfully, Leslie wants her monstrous family to be devoured by the darkness. But she restrains herself because the Sperados deserve a greater punishment. She must endure it a little more. She then proceeds to go inside her room to escape from her mother, and she cries in her bed as she thinks about getting revenge. Oh, poor baby. Oh. On the other hand, Daryl complains to the Marquise about her attitude. Both of them dislike Leslie because they only think of her as a sacrificial lamb. Also, she mentions her using magic, which makes him curious. Actually, the Sperado family members have this destiny wherein the children born with golden hair and green eyes are destined to stand on top and are powerful, while the next child born with silver hair is a sacrificial lamb. Their power can be transferred to the firstborn. However, after the Marquise finds out that Leslie's powers have been awakened, he gets happy thinking about the benefits he could get from that. He is certain that the second darkness user has awakened. The next day, Leslie finds it weird that the servants are now being nice to her. She notices that the Marquise has been strict with the servants, explaining their sudden change of treatment towards her. With that, she then decides to eat together with her family to investigate what is happening. Shortly, Ellie arrives at the dining table with Leslie taking her seat, which makes her furious. Just as she is about to pull her hair, their father arrives. He scolds Ellie for being rude to her sister. All of a sudden, the Marquis starts being nice to her. He apologizes for all the terrible things he did to her before and tells her that he deeply regrets them. It's his duty as her father to make sure she's happy. However, she doesn't have any plans to forgive him. Just recently, he hurt her, so she doesn't believe any of his attempts to be nice to her. That's right, Les. They don't deserve forgiveness, honey. She then walks away, even before they are able to eat. Darkness is very discreet. It's not flashy, and it lurks quietly, like it doesn't exist. Leslie concludes that he already found out about her secret, which is why he's being nice to her. If she doesn't use her power, no one will know if she has it or not, although those who have the same power can sense it. Not long after, Ellie follows her and makes an attempt to attack her, but the dark magic hinders her. Meanwhile, the Marquis starts to throw tantrums because of Leslie's arrogant attitude. He then orders the servant to talk well to her. Actually, the servant notices that Leslie is afraid of fire, which makes him smirk. It seems like he is planning something. Ugh, what now? The Marquis plans to set Leslie on fire. He is certain that she will definitely use her power to try and survive. He can then confirm how strong her powers are and how much she is worth. However, he doesn't know how to do it. On top of that, Leslie has been very cautious recently. Shortly, a butler arrives to pass a message from the marquess. The marquess wants him to come with her to the temple the next day, but he refuses. Momentarily, he retracts his answer as he realizes he can use it to proceed with his plan. The next day, the servant tells Leslie that they will be going to the temple that day, and miraculously, she agrees quickly. For her, she doesn't care wherever she goes, as long as it is not in the mansion. With that, she will be able to breathe without worry. Later that day, she was riding alone in the carriage. It's a bit suspicious, but she feels really comfortable that her family is not around. Moreover, it's only been a few days, but she wants to hurry back to the Duchess already. Meanwhile, the rest of the Sperados family is riding together inside the carriage. They have a quick stop because the Marquis passes something to the men with axes. After that, he orders them to go back home, never mind going to the temple. The marquess starts to get tired of him because of his unreasonable acts lately. However, he assures her that everything will go well, and he's doing it for her and Ellie. In addition, the axes are just preventative measures in case of a fire. Momentarily, Ellie concludes what her father's plan is. On the other hand, Leslie's carriage suddenly stops in the middle of nowhere. She tries to get out, but she's trapped inside. Suddenly, the carriage is on fire. She then finds out that her father organized the whole thing to confirm her powers. Just when she starts to accept her death, Bethrion comes to save her. How despicable that her own father tried to kill her! What a monster! On the other hand, actually, it was Ellie who informed him earlier about the incident anonymously. After Bethrion saved Leslie from the fire, a group of men with axes arrived and tried to take her. However, he threatens those men for what they did to the child and for insulting him and his knights. After they find out Bethrion's identity, they all run away quickly. He then lets them go away since Leslie's safety is more important. One of the knights notices that he seems to know the child, so he tells him that she is his sister. Later that night, Leslie wakes up from a bad dream. The Duchess immediately comes near her. She gives her something to drink so she can sleep better. Leslie is afraid to go to sleep because then the same dream might appear again. She then mentions their contract relationship, a promise that the Duchess has to keep. In accordance with her contract, the Duchess assures her that she will always be by her side. Shortly, Leslie feels reassured knowing that the Duchess will stay by her side until she falls asleep. Not long after, Bethrion calls his mother. The priest had already checked his burns earlier and healed them instantly. The Duchess expresses her frustration toward the Marquis Sperado. She never thought that he would be capable of lighting a carriage on fire, especially with his own daughter inside. Recalling what her grandparents said before, the second child of the Sperado family typically passes away unusually early in the past. Moreover, there is no need for them to care about other people's family matters. However, Leslie's desperation stuck with her. The Duchess then decides to pay the Marquis a visit right away. Meanwhile, the Marquis is very furious and is destroying the house. He scolds his men for losing Leslie. While the ruckus is ongoing, Ellie witnesses everything. Ellie finds out that Leslie is with the Salvatores, and a part of her doesn't want Leslie to come back. After a while, the Duchess Salvatore arrives at their place. Ellie then goes to her formally to greet her. Out of the blue, the Duchess asks about Ellie's age. She thinks that the eldest Sperado daughter is quite big for her age. That's maybe because she isn't your daughter. Marquis Sperado immediately apologizes for making the Duchess wait. They begin to talk about the incident with her daughter shortly. He tries to make excuses for what happened, but she doesn't believe him. She then asks him without hesitation if Leslie is really his daughter. While waiting for the Marquis to show up earlier, Ellie toured her around their mansion. She notices that their house seems like everything is for one child only, which is Ellie. There is nothing for Leslie around the mansion, like she didn't even exist. The Duchess finds it weird, so she starts to doubt the Marquis. Momentarily, she mentions that her grandfather told her before about all the second children of the Sperado family who died at an early age. After what she said, the Marquis's reaction proves that he is guilty. Admittedly, she doesn't know much. However, she is certain that he only raised Leslie for something else other than a daughter, and that he attempted to kill her countless times before. The Marquis starts to get defensive, so he keeps spouting nonsense. He then threatens the Duchess with a duel if she doesn't bring Leslie back to him, but she doesn't feel threatened at all. In fact, she is looking forward to that day as she tells him that she will break his bones with her bare hands. With that, the Marquis decides to put her on trial. Yes, now that's queen behavior. Meanwhile, back at Salvatore's house, Leslie wakes up thinking that everything was just a bad dream. Momentarily, she immediately pretends to be asleep as she hears Bethrion's voice from outside the room. He then comes inside the room to check on her along with his father. She then hears an unfamiliar voice, so she peeks to see who it is. When the old man's face comes into sight, she feels startled, so she swiftly runs to Bethrion. Shortly, he assures Leslie that she is safe because the man is his father. Afterward, she introduces herself. Actually, she's not scared of him. Rather, she's just not used to a grown man trying to please her. Serene Delpa Salvatore, Acella Salvatore's husband, tries to be friendly with her, so she feels a bit relaxed now. After introducing himself to Leslie, Serene welcomes her to their home. Later on, the three of them ate together. Serene and Bethrion are just watching her enjoy the food. Serene offers her more food, however, Bethrion restrains him. Although his intentions are good since he wants Leslie to eat good food after being asleep for 4 days, she's only allowed to eat nutritious ones. She couldn't believe that she'd been asleep for that long. Moreover, she finds out what the Marquis did to get her back after Serene accidentally says a curse word in front of her. Just like a normal child, she is curious about a lot of things, especially what she hears from adults. Bethrion kicks out his father outside the dining hall. It's a punishment for being careless in front of the child after saying foul words, even though he didn't mean to. Leslie then starts asking a lot of questions, so Bethrion decides to explain everything from the start. Oh, he is such older brother material. Recently, the Sperado Marquis came to Salvatore's place to get Leslie back. After the Duchess's visit to the Marquis, he was convinced that he wouldn't be able to get Leslie back. Thus, he caused a ruckus at the front door, yelling to get back his daughter. They came when the Duchess was home alone, so they got overconfident, but they chose the wrong opponent. The Duchess was able to defeat all of them by herself. Leslie thinks that the scary Marquis is nothing now that she left their horrible house. Before she heads back to rest, Bethrion gives her medicine first. Afterward, Leslie is taken to her own room, which she will be using from now on. She gets excited, as it is obvious that she loves the room. Shortly, Madele, who will be taking care of her from now on, introduces herself. Later that night, Serene pampers his wife after she had a long day dealing with odd people. The Duchess listens to him be excited about Leslie. He wants her to be their daughter. However, making Leslie their legal daughter may bring some trouble. In addition, the Marquess is quickly erasing all evidence that he ever abused Leslie. Since the evidence is within their house, the Duchess can't do much. He's probably doing all that while preparing to send the Duchess to trial. With that, say Rainey gets mad. Momentarily, the Duchess gives a fair warning to her husband to be careful of the words he says in front of Leslie. The next morning, the Salvatore family, including Leslie, ate breakfast together. It seems like they have to buy another chair for her because she can't quite reach the table. However, there's no need for that since she will make sure to grow up quickly. Leslie is spoiled by the Salvatore couple as they decide to buy things for her. Shortly, she requests to go downtown since she hasn't been there before. With that, the Duchess even encourages her to go sightseeing with Bethrion. Later that day, Bethrion and Leslie observe Ruente, their second brother, talking to Conrad Alpe Altera, the second eldest son of Duke Altera. When Leslie sees Conrad's golden eyes, she instantly remembers meeting him before. Based on what Leslie knows, the Salvatores and the Alteras, the Empire's most influential forces, are on bad terms. However, Bethrion corrects her. Moreover, he informs her that Conrad is actually a paladin. After a short while, Ruente and Conrad head to where Bethrion and Leslie are. Ruente has no idea who Leslie is, so he asks who she is without even greeting her first. Bethrion then scolds him for his lack of manners. Momentarily, Conrad and Leslie introduce themselves to each other. She didn't mention her last name since she didn't like it. Moreover, she wants to call herself Leslie Salvatore. Conrad is not staying for too long because he still has some work to do, so he excuses himself shortly. Now, the three Salvatore siblings are left alone. Ruente then asks again about Leslie, so Bethrion introduces her to him as their little sister, which leaves him surprised. Leslie is eating pancakes alone at the dining table. It's her first time seeing how pretty-looking pancakes are, so she's really happy. However, she feels kind of lonely. Bethrion had work that day, so he wasn't able to be with her, but he promises that he will take her downtown the next day. Leslie restrains herself from feeling lonely, especially because she has yet to be officially adopted as a Salvatore. On top of that, she is just a girl who is there because of a contract. She shrugs her thoughts off as Ruente arrives shortly. He greets her quite aggressively, but Leslie stays calm while explaining the reason for her presence at Salvatore's place. Ruente notices that she seems to be used to dealing with aggressive emotions. Momentarily, she leaves him alone in the dining room. He couldn't believe what's happening, especially with a Sperado member being a part of their family. Later that night, Leslie looked outside her room window. She then asks Medell about hooking fingers when making a promise and how it's different from a contract. Earlier, Bethrion hooked their pinkies when he made a promise to her. Medell then enlightens her as she answers Leslie's questions. Later on, Leslie requests to look outside a bit more when Medell is about to close the windows up since it's getting cold. With that, she offers to get her some hot chocolate to warm her up. On the way to get a drink, the Duchess runs into Medell, so she asks her about Leslie since she is her personal maid. Medell then shares her observations about how Leslie has more knowledge of adult matters than things of her age. On top of acting strange, Leslie seems too mature for her age. The Duchess just tells Medell that she has her own reasons, so she should treat her well. Leslie is already sleeping when Medell comes back with her hot drink. She then carried her to bed so she could sleep well. The next morning, Leslie wakes up very early because she's too excited to go downtown that day. She finishes preparing shortly with Medell's help. Bethrion is already waiting for her as she runs toward him in a fur ball coat. She's so squishy! I want to hug her! The coat is a big hit for her since it's Ruente's from when he was young. She is actually that small, which makes her really cute. Leslie wants to grow tall like the Duchess, so Bethrion assures her that she will eventually grow when she's old enough. On the way downtown, Medell notices how much Leslie enjoys the outdoors as she looks out the window with a huge smile. For her, every time she looks outside, it is less suffocating. Medell then remembers the conversation she had with the other maid last night. They notice Leslie's strange behavior since she is too mature for a little kid. Moreover, the Duchess ordered them to treat her well. Presently, they are almost there, and Leslie is feeling a bit hungry, so they decide to eat first before going shopping. Afterward, they are now shopping for clothes for Leslie. Medell enumerates the orders for the shopkeeper. She mentions a lot, but Leslie likes the blue dress the most, which fits her perfectly. While Medell and Bethrion scroll through the catalog to choose more clothes for Leslie, she decides to go to the washroom. She asks someone to guide her along the way. Just when she's about to go inside, Ellie grabs her out of the blue. Is she stalking our Leslie? Ellie drags Leslie inside the washroom. She pushes her to the wall as she expresses her anger and frustration with her little sister's presence in her favorite store. The reason she's so angry is because someone like Leslie dares to come to the same store as her. Back when she was still living in the Sperado mansion, Ellie never allowed her to walk anywhere near her room. It seems like the marquess is not doing well since Ellie is shopping by herself early in the morning. Normally, they shop together and spend the rest of the day at leisure. Now that the rumors about the Sperado family have already spread, things are different. Leslie concludes that Ellie decided to come home early in the morning so that no one was around. With that, she accuses her of planning everything, including breaking their own father's arm. In the end, the unwanted daughter gets blamed again for the things she didn't do. She's so mean to her little sister. Momentarily, Leslie realizes that if it weren't for Ellie, she might have spent her entire life in the Sperado family, yearning for their love. She is quite thankful for her because of that. When she's about to walk away, Ellie stops her. The Sperado family did nothing but cause Leslie a lot of trauma. Moreover, Ellie is only concerned about herself, but she is putting all the blame on her sister. Shortly after, Leslie finally walks away and returns to Bethrion. When she gets back, Bethrion apologizes for what Ruenti did to her in the dining room. Even though she was threatened by him, she didn't feel scared at all. For her, if he truly hates Leslie, the look in his eyes would have been hostile, so she doesn't make it a big deal. After that, they decide to go look around other stores while they finish measuring her clothes. They proceed to go to a toy shop, which makes Leslie excited. Bethrion tells her to choose anything she wants, but she is hesitant. If she doesn't choose one, then he doesn't have any choice but to buy her everything. He's indeed a good brother to Leslie. How sweet! Attempting to coax Leslie into making a purchase, Bethrion suggests buying everything, hinting that Salvatore's financial standing might become the town gossip if she doesn't. It's giving brother vibes. Leslie shyly points at the black bunny. Next up, pastries. Watching Leslie enjoy her food with bright smiles, Bethrion wonders what exactly the Sperado marquess did to Leslie, that such simple things made this young child this happy. Medell, Leslie's maid, suggests that Leslie try the cookie with the hot chocolate. Instead of dipping or sipping in the hot chocolate, the maid finds Leslie putting the snowman-shaped cookie floating in the hot chocolate. Leslie finds it pretty, so excitedly shows it to Bethrion, only to find it in ruins, cracked and sinking. Night falls, and Leslie remains embarrassed by the cookie mishap. The image of the cookie sinking in such a depressing way flashes back at her. She makes Medell promise to keep what happened a secret. After Medell left the room, Leslie slowly got out of bed, carrying her newly bought bunny. She talks to the darkness, saying that it looks like her bunny, as they are both black. Leslie thinks that what a relief that she was born with the power of darkness. She promises that the end of the Sperado marquess shall be a present for those who helped her. The next day, the Duchess announces that Ruenti will be teaching Leslie. A rather displeased face is seen in Ruenti. Ruenti may not look like it, but he's a rather famous magician. Leslie will learn the basics of wielding a sword, but she needs to gain more stamina first, and then move on to learn proper etiquette, dance, and other minor things. After the meal, desserts are served, a new addition to the Salvatore's routine. Bethrion gazes at the hot chocolate and cookie dessert, a reminder of the embarrassing incident. Medell tells Leslie to try putting the cookie on top again, just like how she did, leaving Bethrion and Leslie awkward. Leslie attempts once more to place the cookie on the hot chocolate, expecting it to sink just like the previous day. She hesitates, nearly giving up, but to her surprise, the snowman-shaped cookie rests atop the liquid. It's as if the snowman is riding a boat. Little did Leslie know Medell, the chef, and other servants collaborated to create this beautifully adorned hot chocolate. Their meticulous efforts involved 64 attempts and 20 cups of hot chocolate to provide Miss Leslie with a perfect moment. These servants are MVP. So sweet of them. Amidst the praises for Leslie, Ruenti perceives the entire situation as madness, thinking everyone has gone crazy these last few days. Ruenti appears in front of Leslie as he will be teaching Leslie about magic. He tries to act indifferent towards her, telling Leslie he doesn't have a choice to teach her because it's his mother's task to him. The mysteries surrounding the power of darkness remain veiled, concealed by the Sperados for almost a millennium. Ruenti hints at the similarity between Leslie's power and regular magic, suggesting that the methods of controlling should be similar. Intent on challenging Leslie, Ruenti presents her with a stack of books, some rarely mentioned even in the upper levels of the academy. From archaic language to the continent's history, he labels this as basics. Ruenti's treatment of Leslie stems from Sperados joining their family. Just thinking about the disgusting things the Sperados did to hold them back infuriates Ruenti. But it's just like the others completely forgot about it and are all excited, even his brother. Well, if you just open your eyes and look at Leslie's cute eyes, you'd understand why. Anticipating complaints from Leslie, Ruente is surprised to find her more well-read than most adults, having devoured every book he mentioned. While telling her extensive knowledge to Ruente, Leslie glances at him nervous, gripping into her own dress, thinking she must still be lacking. She remembers the reason why she's read all those books: the slap, the pain, and the heartbreaks her tutor gives every time a question goes unanswered. She is told that her ignorance will be her sister's ignorance, which will bring shame to the Sperado family. Her past life was dictated by familial expectations. Although this isn't the Sperado mansion and Ruente isn't that tutor, Leslie can't shake off her worries. Ruente's indifferent demeanor shifts to admiration as he marvels at how a 12-year-old could comprehend Nairokia's theories. He seeks validation, asking for her favorite passage, verifying her grasp of Nairokia's work, an underrated philosopher's theories known to few. Ruente is so captivated by her knowledge. At her age, she knows archaic and holy language, and even history up to the birth of the Fourth Empire. And if she knows this much, there's no doubt people will brand her as a prodigy. Ruente is very excited as he envisions the potential of such a prodigious child. But a sudden realization brings him back to his guarded self. Despite Leslie's undeniable charm, she's a Sperado, a fact he sternly reminds himself of. He cannot afford to be swayed by her innocence like others, as he considers himself the sharpest Salvatore tasked with safeguarding their home. However, her preference for Nairokia's theories frustrates Ruente. He finds himself agreeing with every point she presents, challenging his own principles. Leslie tells him she's very happy to have met Ruente, and that she has never talked to anyone about Nairokia before like this, looking forward to be taught by him. Since Leslie already knows about theories, Ruente wants to move on to some real practice. Ruente asks Leslie to use her power like how she used it the first time she spoke with the Duchess, but this time, instead of the whole mansion, only the room they're in. In an instant flick, Leslie covers the room with her powers, amazing Ruente, and realizes this is the powers that help maintain the Sperado family for thousands of years. Impressed, Ruente acknowledges Leslie's capabilities, understanding why his mother, the Duchess, adopted her. He challenges her to master power control, emphasizing the potential repercussions of mishandling any power. Leslie struggles with power control, a common issue among individuals with formidable abilities. Ruente patiently explains while gently patting Leslie's hair, guiding her through their training. Leslie concentrates on mastering 1 log out of 6. Halting her efforts, Ruente observes Leslie having conquered 4 out of 6 logs, an accomplishment that even an average magician might struggle with after a year or 2 of practice. Ruente reassures Leslie of her exceptional progress, affectionately caressing her with a tender gaze. The source of all Leslie's problems is her stamina, whether she eats and sleeps right to improve her training. Meanwhile, in a basement somewhere, the Duchess with Bethrion is interrogating a servant who leaked information about the Duchess eyeing the orphanage. After a while of threatening, the servant tries to tell them about Sperado when suddenly his mouth spills blood, causing him to die. Oh no! Jenna, the butler, imagines that Parlon might have been promised nobility in exchange for his betrayal of the Salvatore family. Convinced that his moral compass is distorted and lacking sharpness, Jenna believes Parlon fell victim to manipulation without realizing it. Despite his suffering, he never sought medical help, a testament to his optimism that he'd attain nobility. A knight raises suspicions about Marquess Sperado's involvement after Parlon's mention of the name. However, Beth dismisses the notion, affirming that someone stronger than Marquess Sperado is behind the incident. Meanwhile, Ruente and Leslie are getting closer. Leslie asks him why the royals and Duchess Salvatore get along. Ruente explains to Leslie that the Salvatore family existed long before the empire was established. The royal family thinks that the Salvatore family might be superior to them, so they didn't like them. The royal family's crests have a snake with 2 heads. One head has the sun in its mouth, while the other head holds the moon. The sun and moon represents the sky, which means that the royal family is the sky. They are arrogant enough to call themselves the sky. The personalities don't exactly help either, especially his mother, who's not the type of person who easily bows to other people. A realization shocks Leslie. The rumors about the Salvatore being monsters were spread by the Salvatore family themselves. Ruente jokes about their supposed monstrous traits. Leslie disagrees, emphasizing the family's kindness to her. Ruente playfully teases, saying they're only kind to her. Their chat is interrupted by the Duchess's summon. Ruente notices Leslie still addressing him formally, despite her upcoming status as a Salvatore. He asks her to call him something else, prompting Leslie to playfully call him Brother Ruente. As they head to the Duchess's office, Ruente informs Leslie about the Duchess inviting Conrad, a member of the royal family, due to Leslie's power. Ruente arrives at the office of the Duchess. He tells his mother how Leslie is very intelligent, a genius rather, similar to the seniors at the academy. A true genius in philosophy but lacking in other subjects, and her etiquette is quite particular. She does what a maid would do sometimes. She has no common sense and lacks so much pride that it is evident that she's been mistreated her entire life. Hey, easy with the insults! Ruente tells the Duchess how he wants Conrad to protect her, concerned about how and when her powers will run rampant or not, or the power is too strong but the owner is too fragile. Divine powers can heal wounds, but can also soothe powers that are rampant, even Ruente and the Duchess can't do. It would be hard to stay calm knowing how powerful Leslie's power is. They could even be on the same skill level as Conrad. On the other hand, the Duchess tells Leslie that the Marquess Sperado will be taking her to court, saying the Duchess kidnapped Leslie to learn more about their family's power and other accusations towards the Duchess in order to get Leslie back. Using Leslie as a witness is not possible because the Marquess spread the rumors that Leslie is mentally challenged, a weak child who's lived in her imagination since she was young. Seriously? He's getting worse and worse! Also, according to the law, every child must be under a guardian makes Leslie tremble in fear knowing that if that is the case, she will be back in that disgusting place. But the Duchess puts her at ease as she assures her she will give her the Salvatore name and that the only thing Leslie's going to worry about is what kind of bed and furniture Leslie's going to put in her new room and what cookie she's going to put in her hot cocoa tomorrow. But then, the Duchess gently asks her for a confirmation if the early deaths of all the second and third children in the Sperado family and Marquess Sperado's intent to kill Leslie are related. That's when Leslie bursts into tears, revealing the truth that she was born to be a sacrifice. Leslie reveals why Marquess Sperado attempted to kill her and the underlying cause behind the premature deaths of the second and third children in the Sperado family. She believes that the departed children's souls bestowed their powers upon her for the purpose of seeking revenge. The agony she felt when exposed to fire, she assumes, might have been exponentially greater for those children. However, the Duchess raises doubts about whether these deceased children truly desired Leslie to wield this power for vengeance. Meanwhile, the Duchess took the liberty of arranging an etiquette teacher. Shuela Avon Tireum. That's a wild name right there. The Duchess informs them that Conrad Altera will be instructing Leslie in theology, prompting objections from Duke Serene and Beth, though they hold no sway in the decision. Ruente, meanwhile, will serve as her tutor for all other subjects. Calling Ruente a brother causes a stir at the table. Duke Serene and Beth are too jealous of the intimateness. Leslie, regardless of being hesitant to call them brother, father, and most importantly mother, even before having their name, Leslie tries going back and forth, but she can't do it with the Duchess. Later that day, Conrad came for their theology session over tea and sweets. Why does this look more like a date? Calm yourself, Leslie. Leslie doesn't know what to say and how she should talk to Conrad, afraid of making the slightest mistake. Conrad eases her nervousness by telling her they're just exchanging greetings with each other. He compliments her like how Ruente praises her for her knowledge, and for a 12-year-old, the praises are truly deserved. What a talker! Leslie's blushing, and quite frankly, she isn't the only one. They share how Nyrokia contributed to their friendship with Ruente. Conrad introduces Leslie to an underrated history writer, Emeria, poorly evaluated because she's female and a commoner. The conversation turned into admiring how kind the Salvatores are very far from how society sees them as monsters. The Duke gives off a strong and scary aura, but he's actually very kind. Beth looks stern, but in reality, he's very gentle. Ruente is very knowledgeable, and the Duchess Salvatore is an amazing person. Leslie requests that they have their classes in the estate if that's not uncomfortable for him. Speaking of uncomfortable, Conrad is just about to ask Leslie if they could change the destination of their classes. Somewhere maybe out from someone's dagger stares like now. Conrad describes her as a very joyful person who doesn't match the Salvatore family, being polite, pale, and harmless, like a pure bunny amongst dark, ferocious beasts. OMG, really? But he's literally a priest! God! Conrad asks the butler to bring him some of Emeria's books and to make a list of all the stores that sell desserts, a request the butler doesn't expect because he doesn't enjoy sweet things. Conrad thinks that she has her own predicaments. The first time he saw her in the temple, she was crying and wearing clothes that were out of season and didn't fit with the hallways the noble-looking people. Despite that, he still wants to get closer to her, wondering what expression she will give him the next time they meet. A grumpy Duke hands a letter he found to the Duchess, seemingly still pissed off with the idea of Conrad Altera being the teacher of Leslie. The Duchess explains why they need someone who can calm her power. a power not innate from birth but due to an unfortunate event that made this mere 12-year-old seek revenge for the children of Sperados for thousands of years. Big flaming power. Duke Cyrene instills his dislike of the Alteras, having been acting suspiciously lately. While listening, the Duchess entrusts the newly stamped letter to the Duke for him to deliver it to the important person for the upcoming trial as soon as possible. I wonder who it is. The Duke cutely accepts the letter, submitting to his wife's smiles. How to tame rough-looking guys 101. Before he leaves, he tells the Duchess how he wants Leslie to be able to look back and only remember the happy times. Aww, Dad of the Year award, please! Meanwhile, Marquis Sperado is seen by Rabon, seemingly worried about the arms of the Marquise injured during their encounter with the Duchess Salvatore. It doesn't sound as if Rabon is particularly worried in the Marquise's ears. Rabon bid his farewell, leaving Marquis swinging his cane everywhere because of anger. Thinking of the faces that caused all of this humiliation, the Duchess and Leslie angers him more. He believes that a daughter should listen to her father's words as if they were God's words. If things had gone as he had planned, Leslie would have been married to a poor mercenary and starved for the rest of her miserable life. Like, are you insane? Are you hearing yourself? The thing that the Marquise is still holding on to is the child protection clause to win the trial, as well as Ellie's fiancé, the prince. He sees there's no way that he can lose if he just plays his card right. It could even result in the downfall of the Salvatores. In order to come up with a plan for disciplining Leslie going forward, Marquise examined a book. He made a chain. Not a perfect solution, but the chain can supposedly restrain the darkness. If he wraps Leslie's body with this, then she won't be able to use her powers. Such morbid ideas! How can he call himself a father? His evil thoughts were interrupted by a call for him informing that Her Majesty the Queen Dowager was waiting for his arrival. Queen Dowager Medea seems to like the Marquise. Honestly, I don't know why either. To that, she offers to do something in return for always lifting her spirits. Marquise took the chance to plead a noble trial, the story of how the Duchess Salvatore kidnapped the Marquise's second daughter. We hope this man is on top of the FBI's most wanted list. Such a manipulator! The Marquise successfully persuades the Queen Dowager to initiate a noble trial for Duchess Salvatore. A noble trial in the Empire of Regrettably necessitates the Emperor's written decree known as the Death Sentence of Honor. Should one transgression surface during this trial, one risks losing their esteemed rank and being reduced to commoner status. The Salvatores, a prestigious family, might escape complete rank deprivation, yet a fall from such a lofty position would be profoundly humiliating. The impending familial tie between the Queen Dowager and Marquis Sperado compels her involvement in the plight of an in-law, despite Leslie enduring far greater hardships. Shameless people, just shameless. When the Marquis leaves, thrilled that his wish has been realized, the Queen Dowager hides her crucial part in the beginning of this mayhem. Queen Dowager was the one who leaked some of the information so that the Marquis of Sperado could disrupt the Salvatore Duchess. But his daughter was stolen instead. She did not know he was this stupid. At least we can agree on that, Medea. Mocking the egotistical Marquis, who only cares about his family, can't seem to understand his proposition and believes he can overcome the Salvatores. Her Majesty now worries that she might have chosen the wrong fiancé for Orlando, but is relieved knowing that engagements can easily be broken. She tells the maid to tell His Majesty that she wishes to have breakfast with him tomorrow. Even if he does hate the Queen Dowager, he is still the Emperor and must show courtesy, so for his mother, he will at the very least open a noble trial. The Majesty is curious who this child the two families are fighting over. She asks for her name, and after knowing, she feels bad. To give that child name Leslie, meaning a happy and peaceful family, opposite to what is happening right now, is saddening. Her Majesty is excited about what will happen. For the Salvatore Duchess to choose her, it must mean she is special. Meanwhile, in the Salvatore estate, Leslie begins etiquette lessons with her teacher, Shuela Avon Tyriam. Though Leslie gracefully bows in typical fashion, a gesture reserved for those of higher rank, her habit stems from enduring years of inhumane treatment. Viscountess Tyriam acknowledges Leslie's significance in the Empire, mentioning that only 4 ladies wield more power than she does. As Leslie's tutoring progresses, another teacher becomes enamored with her by the session's end. After an extensive etiquette class, Leslie receives a fluffy pink cotton, momentarily mistaking it for the pink hair of her eccentric teacher, only to realize it's actually a cotton candy. Intrigued by this rare sight in Regrettably, Leslie is captivated by the melted sugar treat. So cute! As the day concludes peacefully, Leslie contemplates the unusual tranquility amidst the upcoming trial, questioning whether such moments should exist. Days pass without updates from the Duchess regarding the trial, leaving Leslie concerned. In a conversation with Ruente, she recalls her struggles to address the Duchess as mother the previous day, worrying it may have disappointed her. Ruente clarifies that Leslie's deep respect for the Duchess hindered her from addressing her comfortably. Recognizing the Duchess's role in rescuing her from a troubled past, warding off the marquess and safeguarding her under the Salvatore name, Ruente assures Leslie that the Duchess understands. Leslie vows to address everyone comfortably once she officially becomes a Salvatore, sealing it with a pinky swear. Known as the Shield, the Duchess is a crucial guardian of the Empire, and Leslie, too, will step into a significant role. Amidst her thoughts, Leslie connects the dots, realizing the Duke Sariane's absence and the Duchess' departure for the palace are likely tied to the impending trial. Feeling a tinge of guilt for potentially causing them trouble and worrying for the Duchess, Leslie grapples with her emotions. Cheer up, Leslie. The Duchess won't be easily taken down. So guys, what do you think of this story so far? Please subscribe and turn on notifications for updates on this and all our other stories, so you can be the first to find out when they're out. Thank you so much for your support. See you in the next one!